Look at the Torah, Parshas Tzav, first column, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 59 in the top of the page. The last thing we're learning, the Alter Rebbe is explaining, so now we can understand why we say half hollow. Those such great revelations. So he says, because when the Yidden left Mitzrayim, it was before Matan Torah, and therefore they weren't able to accept this revelation of godliness, because then they were called Nar. So he says, even though they had all these great miracles, but as far as they were concerned, they were very small. So they couldn't sing the great Hallel, the full Hallel, which is a greater revelation of Hashem. Which is interesting, in the parentheses that we're skipping, the Alter Rebbe asks, or if it's Semach Tzedek, whoever it is, how can you say the revelations were many revelations when we just said that Kriyas Yamsuf is a level of Elokus higher than worlds? How can you say it's a smaller revelation? So he said, no, the revelation was great, except the Jews couldn't accept it, because they weren't the vessel for it, so for them it was a mini revelation.
Whenever you're very happy, you could just sing Hallel? There's a rule and regulation?
There's a Gemara that says, whoever says Hallel every day is like, it's like cursing, it's negativity. Because then it doesn't mean anything anymore. So there is a concept, we do say Hallel every day. In fact, in the first Mass, we say Hallel every day, Hallelujah is all that we say Hallel. So yeah, a Jew has to keep praising Hashem and thanking Hashem. But again, the official Hallel, official praise of Hashem, so to speak, that has to be meaningful. And if you do it 10 times a day, it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yes, the last night you said when they were making Matzah, they were singing Hallel.
Yeah, when they were baking matzah at a Pesach, they were singing Hallel. Just without a brach, but they were just... Yeah, but that was a mitzvah that they had to sing Shir every day, like we do Psuki de Zimra every day. But Hallel is a unique situation. Hallel, you're going to say Hallel every day. It's not...
Hallel was by
David HaMelech.
So before that, what format did they have? Because he wasn't there at the time.
Good question. They had that form of Hallel before also. There were certain things that they knew about before that they sang praise. You have that, you can ask that question in a lot of things. How did they know anything? If Torah wasn't given yet. It's like the famous question, you have Rashi's Tefillin, Rabbeinu Tam's Tefillin. What did they put on before Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam? Obviously they put on Tefillin every day. Even in Mitzrayim, before they left Egypt, they put on Tefillin every day. Okay, well, Derech Moshel, approximately 10 lines in the top. It's similar to the concept of a love of a father to a child. There's 2 types of love a father has to a child. Okay, when the child is a baby. It's an open level of, like he says, you hug him, you kiss him, you carry him. Yeah, that's one type of love when a kid's a baby, when you still love them, by the way. So then it's a love, it's a very open level of love. Yeah, even though openly, it seems to be a greater level of love than to an adult child, nevertheless, he says, the love of a father to a baby, we're going to call him the baby, is in small things, in miniature things. Because the child doesn't have a keli, so even though openly it's a very great form of love, you hug them and kiss them and you carry them and you get on the floor and play with them, nevertheless, it's in the kid's mind, they don't understand what the real level of love is. When the child grows up, You don't find so much that the father is hugging and kissing the child. Nevertheless, the love of the parent is more revealed to the child when he teaches him a chachma or he gives him all his needs. So he says, in the love of a father to a child, you can have a more revealed love, but it's still really a mini love. And then you have a love that's not so openly expressed, but it's a much deeper level of love. And he says, by Yitzias Mitzrayim, the Pesach says, Nar Yisrael, Hadayin Lohem B'im Shleimus Kol Kach. They didn't have the complete level yet. Lochein, Af Al Pisha Giloy Avarabba Mimokim Gevar Meid. Even though the Ava, like he says, was higher than the Shtaushas, Yam became Yabosha, and so on. Amnam Loheir B'hem Rak B'chinas Katmus. What was revealed in them is because the child, the baby, doesn't have the keli for it. So therefore it says mini revelation. Valkain in Gamerim as the halal, you don't finish the halal. So now the question is, the Rebbe is going to ask in the parentheses, so why do you say complete halal the first days? If you say the last days we don't say a complete halal, because we didn't have that gilu yet of Matan Torah. So you said, the Yamir Shesh Gamerim Sahalal, like it says in Zayad, Ki Af Agav Shlo Yabayim Adayin Shleimus, Kokach. But Yitzias Mitzrayim was a unique thing. They went out from darkness to light, from Eretz to Oretz, and then they went out from Shari Tuma, and they became Avdei Hashem. So even though they didn't have the mentality to understand it, but it was openly, even a kid could understand that. When you go out from jail to freedom, so you don't need to be great Kalim to be able to understand that. So therefore he says like this, why do we say Pesach and Pesach half halal for Chol HaMoed in the last days, even though it was a gilu of Kriyas Yamsuf? Granted, it was a very great gilu, like the love of a father to a baby, he hugs him and kisses him and all that, but it's many things. It's not a deep level of love that the child appreciates. The child doesn't appreciate it. When they get older, then the child appreciates it. Especially, by the way, when the child becomes a parent, then they appreciate what the parent was to them. What? Until then, by the way, it doesn't happen.
If the Pesach considers as a one day, like a one long day.
No, it's not.
You always say Pesach is like a one long day.
No, it isn't.
He's thinking about Rosh Hashanah.
Because you can say Halal one day and that's it, the first day. How come say
And the rest of that time you can stay in bed. But Sukkot, which is after Kabbalah Satayra, then the Jews became a keli. In other words, through Sfira Sa'imer, the Jews actually became a keli to this revelation. Like Avos Av Lebnei Agadol, Shemizgalis and Nimshich Mimenu Dvarim Gedelim. Al Kain, Geimen B'Em Sahalu B'Chol Yemei Achag. Okay? So now the Rebbe is answering now one by one all the questions that he asked before. He says the 6 days, 7 days, why over there they needed 1 day, here we need 6 days, and what's the matzah having to do with Kriyas Yamsuf? So he explains what the level of matzah is, and he explains what Kriyas Yamsuf is, and he explains that that's why it says Atzeres la'havaya lokecha, because in Pesach the havaya is becoming a lokecha, and Shmin Atzeres says Atzeres tia lochem. And then he explains why you say half halal versus whole halal. Whole halal means a greater gilui of Elokus, and half halal means a lesser gilui of Elokus. It was such a great revelation, Shvisha Pesach, why don't we complete halal? Because, not the halachic reason, the chassidic reason, because the Yidden didn't have the keli to absorb that level of Kedusha. After Matan Torah, on Sukkot, which is after Matan Torah, then we say the whole thing. Okay, so now he says, now we'll understand. It says, yeah? Okay, but remember, the question he asked before, that he answered part of it already. By Pesach it says, Atzeres Lashem Elokecha. By Yom HaShmini, Atzeres Lashem Elokecha. By Shmini Atzeres, it says, Atzeres Tia Lochem to you. He said, why does it say Lochem? He says, very simple. Because Sukkot is after Matan Torah. So now they were the Keli. So now it's Atzeres Tia Lochem, the Jew was able to feel it. Pesach, when they were still before Matan Torah, it's Atzeres Hashem Elokecha. Only God really feels it. Besides the fact that the Havai becomes Elokecha. Nachshon did not have Emunah. Nachshon had Mesiras Nefesh. It was a Keli enough to cause Kriyas. It's Yamsuf. You know, that Mesiras Nefesh revealed that Gilui of Yam to Yabash. But they didn't internalize it. The Yidden didn't internalize it. Huh? They couldn't because before Matan Torah. That's why you can't say Atzeres Tia Lochem. They couldn't absorb it. Masha'enkim shvil shapes na'matzeres Hashem Elokecha. Shein Amer u'mizgal b'chinas Lochem. It couldn't be revealed such a level of Lochem until Kabbalah Torah. Okay, that's it for this Maamar.
What was the conclusion of the
Conclusion is to be good. Okay, let's start this Maamar about Achron Shel Pesach. This is Kriyas Yamsuf. Now let's go to the other Kriyas Nahar Pros.
The other side.
The other side of Mashiach. Okay, so we're starting now on Kutu Torah Tzav 32, second column. It says in the pasuk, "V'heinif." We learned this Maamar already. "V'heinif yadei ala nar bayam ruchei." He's going to wave his hand over the Nahar, which is Nahar Pros, by the way, the Euphrates. Bayam ruchei, with the spirit, v'yikol shiva necholim, and he's going to divide it into 7 paths. So in other words, let me just explain. By Kriyas Yamsuf, the Medrash says there were 12 paths by Kriyas Yamsuf. One for each Shevet. One for each Shevet. And then there was the 13th, which is called Shara Koilol, which was for those people that didn't know where they belonged. A lot of people don't know who they are, where they are. When Mashiach comes, by the way, now by Kriyas Yamsuf, every river, every body of water in the world split. The Medrash says, except Nahar Pros, except the Euphrates. Because the Euphrates is going to split when Mashiach comes. So Hashem saved that for the Gilui of Mashiach. But by Kriyas Yamsuf, it's split into 12 or 13. And here it's going to split into 7. So obviously there's a difference between the two. He says, Hine Yamsuf v'b'chinas Malchus d'Atzilus. Yamsuf, like we learned before, is Malchus of Atzilus, she b'chinas Dibur Elyon, which is a level of speech. Malchus is speech. Shadibur is saved called Dargin. Malchus speech is the lowest of all levels. Like Malchus is the earth, it's the lowest level. Shebedvar Hashem Shemaim Nasu. Hashem made the world with speech. V'chol asar maimaris. And what are the 10 utterances? Hamshachas Master Spheres Datzilus. Is a revelation of the 10 Spheres of Atzilus. Why did Hashem create the world in 10 utterances? Why not 15, 12, 1, 2, 3? So the answer is because there are 10 Spheres of Atzilus. And every Maamar of the 10 revealed another level of Elokus through the level of speech, which is Malchus. In other words, the revelations of Elokus coming into the world to create the world, they had to go through Malchus, through speech. But there's 10 levels in Atzilus. Every day, the Dvar Hashem of that day was corresponding with another attribute. Mislab Shemeis Yisadibur. Yehi Or is Amshachah from Chochmah. Okay? That's why it's a Bereshis. Reishis is Chochmah. So Yehiyah, the first day is Chochmah, second day is Bina, third day is Tiferes. Das, all 10 levels. And what does Dibur do? Dibur, speech, conceals what you're trying to transmit. Meaning, if somebody is trying to teach somebody a wisdom, intellectual concept, in order for the person to understand it, you have to reveal it in a certain way. Now, any revelation conceals the real thing. You see it more so by a midah, by a feeling. If somebody loves somebody, so they kiss him. The kiss is revealing the love, but the love is much more than the kiss. In fact, the kiss limits the level of love. It limits it, but how else can I reveal it to the person if I don't kiss them? So it's a revelation, but it conceals the thing that you're revealing. Even intellectual, that's why the Gemara says, by Torah over there in the Pasuk, Hashem, the Moshe Beinu at the end of Chumash says, "V'lo nasar Hashem lachem lev l'dais, as naim l'reitz, as naim l'shmei ad hayom hazeh." Hashem, Moshe Beinu, before he's dying, right, says Hashem didn't give you the heart to understand and the eyes to see and the ears to hear until today. Until today. So the Gemara says, a person doesn't understand the depth of the Rabbi until 40 years. So machlekes mean 40 years old or 40 years from the time you heard it. But because Dibur actually conceals, even when a king gives orders, right, speech, that's how a king runs. It doesn't reveal who the king really is. It just reveals what he wants you to do. So that's really concealing it. So Dibur, like we learned before, what does Malchus do? Malchus is called Yam. Because Malchus takes all the levels of Atzilus that come into Malchus and conceal it. To go off topic for a second, Malchus B'chlal, the attribute of Malchus, it says, Lesle Megamar Klum. There's nothing of its own. In fact, the moon, which is likened to Malchus, that's what you speak about by Kiddush Levana. You see, David Melech Yisrael, what does David Melech have to do with Kiddush Levana? The answer is because David Melech is Malchus, David Melech Yisrael. King is Malchus, kingdom, royalty. Royalty is nothing of its own. The moon has no light of its own. It only reflects sunlight. That's why David HaMelech, the Gemara says, Isaiah says it even more in different ways, that David was supposed to be by Nafla. David HaMelech was supposed to be born a stillborn. He was supposed to be born dead. Because Malchus is nothing of its own. So Hashem came to different opinions. Hashem came to Adam Rish, another opinion was the Ovis. It's not a stira, there's Pnimis and Chitzenius, whatever. But Hashem, the simple, well-known one is, Hashem came to Adam Rishon and said, I have a bar nafla, maybe you would like to donate some life. So Adam Rishon said the pasuk in Tillim. How did he know Tillim? Good question. It says, Yemeshin Eseinu Behem Shivim Shana. So Adam Rishon said, you know what? I'll give him 70 years. That's why Adam Rishon died at 930 instead of 1,000. Because he donated 70 years to David HaMelech. Okay, now, 1 second. So it's the same thing it says in Kabbalah and Chassidus, the attribute of Malchus has nothing of its own. So how does the attribute, the 10 spheres of Malchus exist? Malchus of Chachma becomes Chachma of Malchus. Malchus of Bina becomes Bina of Malchus. Malchus of Das, and so on. So basically, Malchus is only getting what the higher spheres are giving it. Chachma gives it something, Bina gives it something, okay? So therefore, now you have a whole level of Malchus. So Malchus basically has nothing on its own. That's what he says.
In a you learn that there is a link for the Malchut, one is, the top of the link is Shamayim, the bottom is
Top of the link is Yam, and the bottom link is Yabosh, right? We just read.
Yabasha.
Yeah,
This is what we learned, right?
right,
And the Yabasha part comes into Bria,
correct.
where the Zman starts.
So what?
Zman, time.
Right.
What happens in between, you have a lake, with the top part and the bottom part, what happens in between?
No comprendo.
Before Zman and when Zman starts.
Between higher than Zman and Zman
Yes.
is what's called Seder Zmanim.
It's called what?
Seder Zmanim. It's the source of Zman.
Uh-huh.
Okay, in order to answer your question, what year did Shvir Sekalim happen?
It's happening right now.
Okay, so Zmanim and Seder Zmanim, when did it happen?
But it's coming into Bria. That's
When did above Zman begin?
it's now.
What do you mean now? Now is time. When did before time start?
There is no time. It's now.
Remember we learned in the Maggid asks the question, why did Hashem create the world 84 years ago? Why didn't He create it 10,000 years ago, 1 million years ago? Then science should also be happy, right? So this guy answers, it's brought down in Kabbalah, but these are answers of Torah, Nishtam Pavamaisis, that there's a lot of tzimtzumim, and all the tzimtzumim took time. So by the time he finished, that's why the world was 57, whatever it was in his year, 84. So the Maggid asks, why didn't you start the tzimtzum earlier? So therefore the Maggid says, the real answer is, you can't ask a question, why didn't Hashem create the world earlier? Because before creation there was no time. There was no earlier. Time began when Hashem created the world. Now Gashmistika time began when Hashem created the world. But there is spiritual Zman. To give you a simple example, a neshama is in Gan Eden, right? On a yahrzeit they go up. Now, is there time in Gan Eden? I mean.
The outside. We have the outside.
So then you tell me that in Gan Eden there's time.
Yes.
How long is a day there?
Must be 25.
And when do they sleep, the neshamas in Gan? When do they eat? Now, it's interesting because Gan Eden or Elyon is Bria. Gan Eden Atach is Yitzira. So Bria is already really in the realm of time. Okay? But in essence, it's higher than time. But there's spiritual time there. There's physical time. There's physical time. It's now 7:14. But there's spiritual, whatever. Each clock in the Shul Baruch Hashem is different. But there's spiritual time.
Equal to our time.
No, it's not equal. It's a different type of time.
We say exactly 1 year is the outside. Exactly 1 year.
Is it the same year up there?
Must be.
There's days of 24/7?
Rabbi, why do you say there is nothing? Malchus has nothing. Doesn't everything start from